Nvidia is not going to invest $100 billion into OpenAI. In fact, they're heavily reducing the amount. It's still $30 billion, but it's going to be their final investment. This is because OpenAI is gearing up for an IPO in which, well, they're trying to get their ads ready, and I want to show you some stuff from Trade Desk in this video. But basically, it looks like OpenAI have realized they can't get all of the funding they need for their data center build out from VC, from other companies, from this type of investment funding. And this, I guess, we could refer to it as circular funding, which is going on inside the AI ecosystem, because these companies like Nvidia are now trying to spend on other companies, not just OpenAI. They've got an investment in Anthropic, although it's nowhere near as big. It's only 10 billion. But there's a lot going on here, guys. And also, OpenAI has now lost 2.5 million users of ChatGPT, which is actually insane. And the Department of Defense or the Department of War are now apparently trying to get Anthropic back, because it looks like they, have realized they kind of need Claude. It might be better, whatever they're using it for, than what OpenAI is, even though Sam Altman just wants to get rid of all of the safeguards and let you do whatever you like, because ultimately it's down to their decision. It isn't down to the law, apparently, which is insane. Okay, we need to cover this because there's loads going on in this video. So we're going to start with Jensen, because this is mental. So Bloomberg is reporting Jensen rules out 100 billion in investment into OpenAI. Now, this is what he says. I think the opportunity to invest 100 billion into OpenAI is probably not in the cards. So this might be the last time we'll have the opportunity to invest in a consequential company like this. Again, referring to the IPO. Now, obviously, ChatGPT and its owner, OpenAI, it looks like they're struggling to raise the funds they need for their data center build out. Now, remember, they actually said, oh, no, we're not going to spend 1.3 or 1.4 trillion by 2030. It's now only going to be 600 billion. And again, like I've said in countless videos, this is why RAM, storage, GPUs is massively more expensive for us. This is why it's becoming more difficult to get your hands on any kind of new hardware. Look at the new Steam hardware, the Steam frame, the Steam machine. All of this stuff is heavily delayed. Even the new MacBooks. Now, maybe this was Apple's plan, but they've got this little MacBook called the MacBook Neo. It's only got 8 gig of RAM. 8 gig of RAM in this day and age. It's crazy. Now, it's probably because of the price of RAM. It also could just be because Apple is stingy. But yeah, I think it's got to be, we've got to be aware here that this data center build out, the commitments from OpenAI to buy tons of memory and all kinds of stuff have basically hammered the market that we're in. And what are we seeing for this? This is, again, one of those things where, AI itself, I'm for AI, but I'm not for it being used to just create slop, like the generative video models, the things that are just creating content, just the shit. I don't want any of that. I don't want AI music. I don't want AI movies. I don't want AI images, right? But if we're going to use it to cure cancer, then okay, let's do it. But there's too much of the slop going on. Anyway, this, I think, is going to be the start of OpenAI having to actually commit to the IPO, which of course means they go public, so anybody can buy shares in the company. So we'll continue with this. So Nvidia contributed 30 billion to a massive 100 billion funding round for OpenAI last month that valued the ChatGPT creator at 730 billion. While it was the chipmaker's largest single bet on a startup to date, the investment fell far below the 100 billion in funding that the company had pledged to consider as part of its pact with OpenAI in September. And again, you've got to remember, 100 billion is a stupid amount of money, but Nvidia is worth like 4.5 trillion. They can afford this. It's nothing to them. Like, this is like a little investment, as mad as that sounds. And they're obviously deciding to put this elsewhere for probably a number of reasons. The terrible PR OpenAI have got, maybe their systems are not as good. There's other competitors. This is what's happening, right? People often talk about parallels with the dot-com bubble and the AI bubble, but the difference is there's a lot of companies that are actually generating revenue. Okay, it's costing a lot to generate that revenue, but they are doing novel things. They are using AI in various applications, so things are working. But there's a lot of them. There isn't just one or two who are taking everything. And it looks to me like OpenAI is one of these companies which has sort of took the early lead, and now it's really struggling. It's clearly its CEO doesn't know what he's doing, and it's causing a massive problem. And they're actually starting to like hemorrhage, and other competitors are starting to grow. So I think there will be a correction in the AI economy, but I don't think it's going to be like a bubble bursting, because let's be real here as well, right? Me and you, we all use AI tools in some capacity, right? We're not just completely devoid of AI. You might have a stance, and I hope you do have a stance similar to me, which is I don't want to watch AI movies. I don't want to listen to AI music or any of that shit. I definitely don't want to play AI-generated games. But if you can use AI to maybe help you, like I've given examples in the past, like I've used it to compare components on mountain bikes. It's faster, it's quicker than me doing that legwork. I can compare different suspension rates with different models really fast, and then that's great. You know what I mean? Or different suspension PSI setups for my Fox 38 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that stuff is actually time saving to me and helpful. That's, I think, where we're using AI. So again, this is that thing of AI is useful and it is being used, but obviously there's loads of different sides to it. I think it's too easy to just go, I'm anti-AI, I don't want it, because I do want AI to cure cancer. You know what I'm saying? And also give us fusion energy. So yeah, this is like pretty ridiculous. Now, one thing I also do want to jump down to here, because they do kind of touch on it here, is Jensen also said that Nvidia's recent $10 billion investment into OpenAI rival Anthropic also probably will be the last in that company. Anthropic has similarly laid the groundwork for its own initial public offering as well. So again, they're all racing for this. And again, this could be a case of whoever lands a successful IPO first could grow to a massive company and then might be able to dominate the market. That's probably what they're going for. This is Trade Desk's stock, and you can see this is being reported here, that OpenAI reportedly explored ad sales with the Trade Desk as revenue hit $25 billion. Now, the reason why they would do this is because if you think about it, if you're going to go public on the stock market, it isn't enough to say, we've got the promise of making artificial general intelligence or even artificial super intelligence, all these things we might do in the next 10 years or 5 years or whatever. They're going to see, or they're going to want to see returns right now. And this is why ChatGPT is having adverts integrated into it. Now, at the moment, they are not being integrated directly into the not the search results, but let's say the query results. You ask the model something, it gives you a result back. It's not giving you like a recommendation to go and buy a product. Underneath that, it might do, right? Now, Trade Desk can obviously facilitate ad buys and things like this. So this, to me, looks like they're trying to get ready to say to investors, on the open market, we've got 800 million plus users a month. We can sell loads of ad money, so we're going to make more money straight away. Problem is, this is going to come at a detriment to their service. And again, it's OpenAI. We know, because of all the coverage we've done on Sam Altman and the way he operates, this company is just about short-term game. And I hand over heart, I've said before, I do not use ChatGPT. I've used some Gemini, but I don't use ChatGPT at all. So this, can somebody please explain this to me? Because Jensen, now, again, he's always going to hype up AI and say it's the best thing ever, right? But Nvidia's CEO says OpenClaw did in 3 weeks what Linux took 30 years to achieve, proof of how big agentic AI really is. Now, I'm not sure, I don't know whether I'm stupid or what, but let's just read this, right? So probably the biggest phenomenon that's happening, and if you're paying attention to it, I'm sure you are, OpenClaw is probably the single most important release of software, probably ever. If you look at OpenClaw and the adoption of it, Linux took some 30 years to reach this level. OpenClaw, in what it is 3 weeks, has now surpassed Linux. It is now the single most downloaded open source software in history, and it took 3 weeks. Now, OpenClaw is you guys may remember everyone was buying like a Mac Mini and was trying to run their own little like agentic AI model with OpenClaw, and you could plug APIs in for other providers. So you could have like ChatGPT inside your Claude bot or OpenClaw, whatever the hell it's called now, and then it would be agent. It would have access to your computer or whatever you want to give it access to, right? So to your emails, your contacts, and you could ask it things. You could get it to do stuff. You could say, hey, set me up a meeting with Bob, and it would find Bob in your contacts list, email Bob, or send Bob a text message. Bob replies back, it reads the reply, and then it replies to Bob and says, okay, let's have the meeting tomorrow at 12 p.m. And then, I don't know why we're having a meeting at 12 p.m., but we are, 12 p.m. And then Bob says, no, actually, can we do 12 a.m.? So things are getting mental. And then Open whatever is like, okay, yeah, hang on, sorts that out. Sorts it all out and then sends you a message ultimately and says, look, I've sorted it out. It's now going to be at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. So let's get on and do it. That's, to me, what I think this is. Now, I have not actually seen any... I'm really confused how this makes your life better. Because... to me, it just looks like one giant security risk. Why would you give an AI agent? And again, I remember actually covering one of the safety researchers from, I can't remember, I think it was from Meta. And she was like, oh my God, it's deleted all of my emails, or it deleted loads of my emails. And I told it not to, but it just did it anyway. Then it said, oh, sorry, I've deleted your emails. I am not, I don't feel confident giving an AI agent that hallucinates, that could just do whatever the hell it likes, even when I tell it not to, access to my personal emails, to my personal contacts, to my phone, to my WhatsApp, right? That to me seems like a recipe for absolute maximum disaster. So I ask again, beyond whatever, those issues. What is this? Why is everyone using this? I don't know. Maybe I'm stupid. I need educating because I don't know. So PC Gamer actually report this, and this is Jensen saying he loves us. He loves PC gamers. He loves gamers. The reason why we're so beloved in the video game industry and why we're so deep in it still, in a lot of ways, not really that deep though, we created the modern video game industry, says Jensen. Now, this is mental because obviously we know they're not making any new GPUs this year. They're cutting back on their GPU production because the high bandwidth memory is going to be used in their Rubavera and in their Blackwell chips. They don't want them used in their GPUs that they're selling to us because they can sell the other chips for massive amounts of profit. And so we're getting screwed. So there's no, yes, he loves gamers, but I think their revenue was something like 3 billion or 3.8 or 3.6 billion. Don't quote me on this, of gaming last quarter, but the AI data center revenue was like 60 billion. So there's just no comparison. So this to me seems a little bit like, yeah, okay, Jensen, but you're not really doing enough for people who want this kind of hardware. And I don't think you will in the future because you're just making too much money off AI. So this is QuickGPT, and they're saying now 2.5 million people have taken action by joining the boycott and getting rid of their ChatGPT subscription. So I think this has to be one of the most insane PR disasters of the modern tech era from Sam Altman, and rightfully so. I will not bore you to death by talking about this again, but it has to be said, he has openly, essentially agreed to the Department of War using his models for autonomous weapons in the complete kill chain without human oversight, and to use them for mass surveillance. He says he doesn't want them to use it for that, but it's not up to him. They can do whatever they like. On the other side of the coin, Dario from Anthropic was saying, I don't agree with any of those uses, so I don't agree to this, blah, blah, blah. And then he got thrown out as the supplier to the Department of War. But this gets more murky. And we've got comments here from Dario, and this is getting crazy, so we need to jump over to this. So CNBC is reporting Anthropic and the Pentagon are back at the negotiating table, which has been reported by the Financial Times. But they're behind a paywall, so we'll use CNBC. So this is, it looks like the Department of Defense kind of want to get back in bed with Claude because it's so, embedded in their system. So it goes on to say the Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei is back at the negotiating table with the US Department of Defense after the breakdown of talks on Friday over the use of the company's AI tools by the military. Amodei is in talks with Emil Michael, Under-Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, in a last-ditch effort to reach an agreement on the terms governing the Pentagon's access to Anthropic's Claude models, the Time reported. Now, can you imagine if the Pentagon then say, yeah, we're actually, okay, we agree to these guardrails that Anthropic want to put in place, and then ChatGPT and OpenAI get kicked out? What's that going to do for their image then? Because they've just been absolutely bodied. Not that we care about their image, but that's crazy, ain't it, to think of it that way. Discussions fell apart on Friday with President Trump directing federal agencies to stop using Anthropic's tools, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying it would designate the company's supply chain risk to national security. Last week, Michael had attacked Amodei, calling him a liar with a God complex in an X post, but now they're both talking again. Agreeing to the new contract will enable the US military to continue using Anthropic's technology, which is reportedly being utilized in Washington's war with Iran. Claude became the first major model deployed in the government's classified networks through a $200 million contract awarded by the Department of Defense to Anthropic, but the company later sought guarantees that its tools would not be used in domestic surveillance or autonomous weapons, which I think is great. That's actually good. I'm actually happy they've done this, because none of this would even, they could have just agreed to let them use it for whatever, and no one would have really cared. But I'm actually glad that Anthropic did decide to stand up for this, because it is, there has to be a line drawn somewhere. The Pentagon had demanded that the military be allowed to employ all of the technology. And of course, we know that OpenAI just said, yeah, cool, you can just do what you like. Although then they went and told everyone, no, they can't. But then they just said, no, they've got the final say. So, what? Again, masters of saying absolutely everything all of the time. Pretty similar to someone who is maybe potentially the president of the United States at the moment. Anyway, Claude became the first major model. I've just read that, so I'm not going to read it again. In a Friday memo seen by the FT, Amodei reportedly told staff that near the end of negotiations with the Department of Defense, it had offered to accept Anthropic's terms if they deleted a specific phrase about analysis of bulk acquired data. A line, he said, exactly matched this scenario we were most worried about. Amodei also wrote in his note that messaging from the Pentagon and OpenAI, which struck a new deal with the Department of Defense on Friday, was just straight up lies about these issues or tries to confuse them. The timing of OpenAI's deal with the Pentagon, announced within hours of the White House decrying Anthropic, caused a public backlash, with Claude seeing a surge of app downloads. Okay, we're going to go over to some other stuff now, because this is just recapping the situation. We know the situation, but we're going to jump over to what Dario has said specifically in a memo that the information got. This is great. So this is the article. There's a link in the video description below to this. This is Anthropic CEO. Trump disliked company for not giving dictator-style praise. So over on Twitter, Hadass Gold, who I believe is a CNN correspondent, says, "Oh, wow, Dario and Modi memo. Per the information, we haven't given dictator-style praise to Trump, while Sam has. We have supported AI regulation, which is against their agenda. We've told the truth about a number of AI policies like job displacement, and we've actually held our red line with integrity rather than colluding with them to produce safety theatre for the benefit of employees." And you can see the quote here from the article. "The real reasons the Department of War and the Trump admin do not like us is that we haven't donated to Trump, while OpenAI, Greg, have donated a lot." Greg is, I think he's one of the co-founders or was on the board of OpenAI. "We haven't given director-style praise to Trump, while Sam has. We have supported AI regulation, which is against their agenda. We've told the truth about a number of AI policy issues, like job displacement, and we've actually held our red lines with integrity rather than colluding with them to produce safety theatre for the benefit of employees." And that is absolutely scathing. That is absolutely, I mean, it's incredible in a lot of ways. So this user then chucks up this post, and we'll go through this as well. So some lawyers have criticised the updated language of OpenAI's contract with the Pentagon concerning domestic surveillance for narrowly prohibiting international and deliberate surveillance. Amity said in his memo that that he believes the attempted spin gaslighting is not working very well on the general public or the media. Clearly isn't. Though he added that he is working on some Twitter morons, or is working on some, he's not working on them, it is. Amity said that his main concern is how to make sure it doesn't work on OpenAI employees. Due to selection efforts, they're sort of a gullible bunch. It seems important to push back on these narratives which Sam is peddling to his employees, he wrote. So I think this is incredible. Thus, Sam is trying to undermine our position while appearing to support it, which he clearly is. I want people to be really clear on this. He is trying to make it more possible for the admin to punish us by undercutting our public support. Finally, I suspect he is even egging them on, though I have no direct evidence for this last thing, which, okay, you know, these guys are at war because their companies want the same thing, really. And Sam probably is being a little bit of a bitch, right? Especially given the way he's been acting in public, which is crazy. But Amody goes on to say, I think this attempted spin and gaslighting is not working very well. We've read this, but I'll read it again. On the general public or the media, where people mostly see OpenAI's deal with as sketchy or suspicious and see us as heroes. We're the number 2 in the App Store now. Anthropic's Claude chatbot later rose to number 1 on one of Apple's App Store download rankings. It is working on some Twitter morons, which doesn't matter, but my main worry is how to make sure it doesn't work on OpenAI employees. So I think that's just crazy. This is crazy. So what's going to happen here, right? You've got OpenAI, you've got Anthropic. They're both vying for government contracts. You have to remember, both of these companies, ultimately their technology is trained on masses of stolen data, which is being used, stolen copyrighted work as well, which is being used to generate their models. Now we've got a point of sort of conflict arising where Anthropic has always stood. I mean, you've got to remember, Dario used to be back with OpenAI, back with Sam Altman in the day, then split off with his sister and founded Anthropic on the foundation of ethics, basically. We want there to be certain guardrails in place to stop certain things being used, i.e. fully autonomous kill chains and mass surveillance and stuff like that. Whereas OpenAI was like, well, we'll just do whatever makes money kind of thing. So this, you know, it's very difficult when you look at this and go, one's a good guy and one's a bad guy. It's a very binary way to look at it. And you could phrase it like, or sort of position it as like, yeah, Anthropic are the good guys, OpenAI are the bad guys. They're the dastardly bad guys nobody likes. But really, they're both kind of murky. And Anthropic was still working inside the Department of Defense anyway. But at least they've got the bollocks to stand up for what they believe in. Whereas OpenAI, they clearly don't. And they're really, really suffering as a company, and they've lost tons of subscribers. So this is, I think, going to drag on for a while. But I do think it'd be quite funny if the Department of Defense go, or the Department of War, whatever they call themselves now, goes, we're going to use Anthropic now, so get out of the systems, OpenAI. What's Sam going to say then? Okay, time for some good news. So Apple Music, which I don't use. I mean, I use Spotify, and really probably I should use Apple Music because Spotify ain't the best. I'll be honest, the only reason I use Spotify is I like their daily mixes and their weekly mix that it gives you, which you can discover new music, which is basically the only reason I use it, right? For discovering new music now that I think about it. But Apple Music, anyway, what they've got here is they're introducing transparency tags to flag AI-generated music and artwork. And this is enough to make me think maybe I should go and check out this again, Apple Music, because Spotify, or whatever, I don't really care what platform gives me the music. I just care if it's AI-generated crap. And it makes me think, have I actually been listening to any kind of like AI-generated music and I haven't realized it's the case on Spotify? I don't know. But this is actually good news. A good job, Apple. Okay, so there we go. It looks like investment is starting to dry up for OpenAI, which is probably a good thing because they've been promising the earth to everyone. They've been sucking up tons of hardware supplies. They've been driving prices up for everyone. They've just been general bastards, let's be honest. Their service looks like it isn't actually as good as other services now. In the early days, don't get me wrong, ChatGPT was wow, look at this thing. Everybody showed it their family and was like, oh my God, look at this, right? That was the thing back in the day, 2023, let's say, 2022, maybe 2023. Not now, though. There's a lot of different other services out there you can use for whatever you want to do. You can even download your open source models and use them on your own machine. Again, there's this whole thing of like a lot of these models are trained on stolen data. And the hilarious thing is a lot of the open source models were basically stealing data out of the big Frontier Labs models, which they're obviously not happy about, and training those models up. So it's just, I don't know, it's just a complete mess when it comes to these large language models specifically. And also the AI models for video and audio generation, all of them, they've all got the same issue. But what I'm saying is it looks like the cracks might be starting to show in the top dog at the moment, which is OpenAI. Nvidia are not going to do the 100 billion investment anymore. Will other companies start pulling back from OpenAI? They've now got a massive wave of negative PR, which is no good for them. And it's definitely no good for companies that are directly in bed with them. Companies like SoftBank, companies like Oracle, will they change direction? Going to be very interesting. In fact, I've actually just thought to myself, didn't SoftBank say they were going to buy like 3 billion of services from OpenAI every year? But where's that gone? Because what services are they going to buy for that kind of money? It's actually crazy, isn't it? Anyway, all right, guys, thanks for watching today's video. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And yeah, I've been Stylosa. You can follow me on everything, which is at Stylosa. But I think, yeah, the cracks are probably starting to show. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next video. See you soon.